Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel, and today we're going to continue our story where we left off. So the last time when we left off, she was in the hospital for about a month. When I left it off the last time, she was 1,030 grams, which is pretty good compared to the fact that she was born at 780 grams. At that point, my preeclampsia was getting better as well. I was always measuring my blood pressure at home, and I noticed that I don't have to take as many medications, because I was taking like 10 medications, throughout the day. And I noticed that if that happened, like if I took a medication and I was supposed to take another one 2 hours later, and I measured my blood pressure and it was normal or even low, then I didn't take the next dose. So I did notice that I was tapering off of the medications, and when I went to the doctor, she confirmed that that's what I'm supposed to do, and just keep doing it until I'm completely off of all the medications. Supposedly that can take a while, like I think 6 weeks or so, and I do think that's what it took me, about 6 weeks or so. She also did say that the cut she did was looking really good, which is like seriously, the C-section was healing beautifully. My only issue still remains with the C-section mark is that, or not the mark, the scar. The scar itself just looks like a regular scar. Obviously it's been a year, so it's fading. But it never got infected, or I never had any issues with it. The only problem I have, and it's probably everyone's problem, is that when they stitch it together, the skin, like this skin here is because you were pregnant, so the skin up is a lot bigger, so to speak, like stretched out, while the one underneath isn't necessarily. So even to this day, I feel like the skin when they meet at the stitch is just not right. Like it kind of looks like the skin still kind of loops over the scar a little bit. Like it's not really describing it well, but I don't know if you know what I mean. Like this skin was stretched out, and then as it shrunk and went back to normal, it's still kind of loose just around the stage. This has nothing to do with the baby. This just has to do with my my own C-section story. So back to the baby. 3 weeks after 3 weeks in the hospital was just, as I said, like we went to visit her, hugged her, cuddled with her, changed her diaper, bathed her, just looked at her growing beautifully. And on Friday they called me and they told me that my baby is sick. They think she got an infection because her heart rate keeps dropping and her oxygenation keeps dropping, and they find that happens a lot when a baby is sick and fighting off an infection. Also, obviously she looked sick, like she was just basically like she was just like sleeping, and you could tell that she looked very tired. She just wanted to sleep, and usually she's an extremely active baby. Like she was always up and walking and moving, and by walking I meant like crawling around in her incubator. And what happened is that they take blood test at a time, and then take a urine test, and they send it to a hospital and to check for infection to see what's happening. And they said the first test that came back, they came all back negative, that she doesn't have anything, but we have to wait like 48 hours for the final test to come back. But one good thing came out of it. When they did the blood test, they realized that her hemoglobin was low, so actually she got the blood transfusion, which supposedly is really normal for premature babies. So lots of babies go through a couple of blood transfusions throughout their stay in the hospital, and I wasn't really Well, I was a little bit worried, but I did notice that it's quite normal. I read about it and it is quite normal for them. So she did get a blood transfusion. I just had to okay it. They told me obviously all the possible side effects of getting a blood transfusion, but thank God it was all good. This was the only one she ever got, by the way. I personally have an issue with hemoglobin, so mine is if I take iron like crazy, then I can keep it in the normal range, but by itself, like, mine is pretty low usually, so I wasn't too surprised. But that was the one good thing that came out. We realized that she has low hemoglobin, which completely explains why she was tired and wasn't moving much, and all her other symptoms, and why her heart rate was dropping, and why her oxygenation was off, and all these other symptoms of this infection that they made up was just her tummy troubles digesting the food. And I knew it, and it was obvious to me, it was obvious to the father, it was obvious to every single person except the doctors, it was obvious to every single nurse I talked to. They all realized, they all knew it, that we all knew it, that she doesn't have any infection, and the only issue that she did have was that her hemoglobin was low. She needed a blood transfusion. Every test came back completely negative, so they could never actually confirm there was an infection. There was never any signs of an infection. She didn't have a temperature. There was nothing. She was back to being completely normal. Like within 24 hours, she was back to her normal self. But they thought that she's, you know, she's having an infection. So she had to be on antibiotics for a few days. I think it was a 4-day. And for that time she was on the IV as well. So it was just really annoying because we couldn't cuddle with her because she was hooked up to an IV, and it was just the most annoying time, I thought, back at the time, but it's gonna get worse. Just don't want to get into that. But anyways, so she got her blood transfusion Friday morning, and by the evening she was back to her, as I said, completely fine. She was on antibiotics for a few days, but they were still feeding her. So she, as soon as she got her blood transfusion, she looked 100 times better. Like she was, like, by the evening she was back to normal. She started the antibiotics on Friday, and they were supposed to finish it on Monday, but she pulled out her IV with the antibiotics, so they had to give her a new one, and then for this reason they decided to go longer because she wasn't getting the antibiotics for a while or something. I don't really get it. The point is that they told me that she's gonna be on antibiotics for a few more days because she pulled out her IV from her hand, and they had to put it through her feet, hoping that she's not gonna pull it out. Okay, so she finished the antibiotics on Thursday, so she was on it for 7 days at the end. As I said, for no reason whatsoever, but that's fine. But I could finally cuddle with her again because the infection was gone, and that was amazing. And she could actually, at this point, she started her 4th week in the hospital. So this was after a month in the hospital, and she could actually lift her head up when I was holding her like this. She could actually lift her head up, which was super cute. And at that point she was 32 weeks, so she would have been 32 weeks. She was moving way too much, so she was actually losing weight, and unless they really wrapped her in with all the blankets, as they basically every time they didn't wrap her around, she was losing weight or she didn't gain weight. So we had to make sure that she had 2 different nurses every day, and it was almost a different nurse every single time we saw her. And so we had to, like, put a note that please bundle her up, because otherwise she just doesn't gain weight and she just keeps moving. So, and every time, it was really annoying because every time a nurse didn't do that, she didn't gain weight. And at that point we knew that she needs to gain more weight so she can finally come home. And I'm actually gonna finish this video, and this video is it's probably a bit all over the place because I remember differently, but I have my notes here, and I went from memory and I went from my notes, and it's a little bit all over the place. I will try to edit it that it makes more sense, and if you have any questions, you need clarification, let me know, and I might have to redo this video for people to actually understand it more. So next time I'm gonna talk about the second month in the hospital. That was a little bit better, okay? Because I don't want to say too much, but we are not out of the woods yet. Like, we had more issues, and it was never the baby's issue and never the baby's fault, I can tell you that. It was always the hospital. So the hospital did an amazing job with my C-section, by my preeclampsia, and realizing that she needed to get born, but they did a very bad job at the NICU. And I don't know anyone has any other horror stories in the at the NICU or not, but if you do, please let me know. Mine continues, so I will definitely tell you how it continues, and I have more horror stories, and I will probably summarize it all at the end when I get to the end of the story, and then maybe this video will make more sense by then. Thank you, and see you next time.